Oh, okay. Already ready. We move to the early vote. We don't need anything in the game, but it's little station. I finally turned my phone back on at 6:30. This meeting will now come to order. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Shh, shh, shh. It's okay. Y'all just didn't know how to do it.
This is our August meeting. No, this is our September meeting, and I'm a month off. September 17th. I think the first item is our consent agenda. We need a single motion for the approval of minutes for our August regular meeting and our tax rate meeting. We need approval of financial summary of fund balances, authorization for payment of bills. Do we have a couple of them we need to pull out?
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff Allison.
Yeah.
Larry Benson.
Larry Benson.
Those are the only two that I saw.
We need approval for the proposed agenda, and we're going to move item H up between D and E on the agenda. And we need approval of substitute teacher and bus driver list additions. Do we have a motion?
Without those two, those items, I'll make that motion.
Troy makes a motion. Do we have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion?
So on your substitute list, that I told you about, is my daughter. We needed a substitute nurse. So she came down and put in for 3 days, had her background check on. So I just want you to know that up front. I didn't know how long before I asked her, she was off. I just needed,
Well, you talk to me too.
yeah, we needed help.
Yep, I do that.
So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. She worked those 3 days. I don't know if she worked again.
Say something about those two things.
Took care of it. Again, I took care of it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried, 6-0. We need to approve the bills for Jeff and Larry Benson. I need a motion to approve them. Roy makes the motion. Need a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried 4 and 2 absent. We would like to recognize our visitors and thank everybody for coming. I see a few more people wearing masks tonight than last time. Communication, MSBA monthly board report.
Education's board report for the month of September. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the opening of a school year like no other. The continuing COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a wide range of school reopening plans in Missouri. Some students are returning to full-time in-person classes, but with new procedures in place, including masks, frequent hand washing, and physical distancing. Some are returning part-time in school buildings and part-time learning remotely, while other school districts are beginning the year with virtual instruction only. And those plans may change quickly, depending on how the coronavirus either spreads or is contained this fall. MSBA, the Missouri Hospital Association, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education have released a new poster reminding students that they have a role to play to defend against the coronavirus at their schools and in their communities. The Be a Hero and Mask Up posters are being provided to elementary and middle schools throughout the state. The posters are an effort to remind students they can be superheroes by using hand sanitizer, keeping proper distance between themselves and teachers, and wearing their masks in the fight to keep their communities safe. The pandemic and the recent focus on social and racial justice have put the issue of educational equity in the spotlight. It's not a new issue for MSBA and our public schools, but it is one that's receiving greater attention. MSBA's Senior Director for Equity and Board Development, Janet Tilley, says school boards have a responsibility to ensure success for all students.
And a fiduciary has the responsibility of loyalty and trust and of care of the children within their district, and that means all children. And so as a fiduciary, you have to know what are the needs of our kids and how do we address all of those needs.
Tilley adds, equity is not just a matter of opportunity, but also must include access to that opportunity.
You have to dig a little bit deeper and to start to look at what are the processes or the reasons why those are the children who are in poverty. And you can't ignore it. We have to acknowledge the fact that a lot of these children are facing these barriers because of systemic processes that were put in place by the adults around them. And so we have to then know what those barriers are and know how to navigate and provide the access that these kids need.
MSBA has several initiatives underway to address the issue of equity, including 2 new board workshops, a book study available to board members, and the development of a toolkit designed to assist boards in examining their policies and practices through an equity lens. Contact MSBA's Board Development Department for more details on those initiatives. As many school buildings reopen, it's important that educators are aware of their responsibility to report cases of child abuse and neglect. A new video produced by the Department of Social Services, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and MSBA is designed to heighten the importance of reporting child abuse and neglect as the new school year begins. The director of the Children's Division, David Wood, says an online reporting option allows mandated reporters to quickly share troubling information with the appropriate personnel.
Due to the recent pandemic and schools switching to distance learning, there has been a decrease in the number of hotline calls reporting child abuse and neglect. I believe there will also be a large increase in calls as students return to school, so we need to be prepared. The first step in helping abused or neglected children is learning to recognize the signs of child abuse and neglect. The presence of a single sign does not prove child abuse is occurring in a family, but a closer look at the situation may be warranted when these signs appear repeatedly or in combination.
The Department of Social Services urges every Missourian to be attentive to the safety and well-being of children during COVID-19. If you suspect child abuse or neglect, you can call the toll-free hotline at 1-800-392-3738. The hotline is answered 24 hours a day, every day, year-round. MSBA is pleased to announce Dr. Robert R. Redfield, the Director of the Centers for Disease Control, will be with us live as a speaker during the first general session of the 2020 MSBA Annual Conference on Friday, September 25th. He will discuss how COVID-19 is impacting our students and schools and what the future looks like. The 2020 Annual Conference will be held virtually this year and will include traditional pre-conference sessions, general sessions, and other conference events. 30 sessions will be presented during the virtual conference on September 24th through the 26th. Additionally, a series of online sessions will be offered weekly to registered conference participants beginning October 6th. Those registered for the annual conference will have access to all content until June 30th of 2021. Check the MSBA website for registration information and a schedule of conference sessions. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
I forgot to do the pledge, so we're going to do it now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any public comments. I'm aware of the board spotlights.
So we didn't bring any outside organization in this month, but and we're going to talk about this a whole lot during Mr. Dalton and I's report, but really our spotlight is our staff and our teachers for the work that they are doing as we have taken on this new challenge. So we're going to talk about all the successes that we've seen and some things we're trying to do to make their job easier as we go through tonight. But they're the heroes. They're doing an outstanding job and lots of smiling faces. So we're going to talk about that.
I think they're to be commended. They're taking on, I don't know if it's double duty or not, but it's sure enough more than one duty.
Absolutely.
We thank you, and you're to be commended. Principal and director reports. Elementary report.
Just kind of echo what Dr. Dial said. We've been off to a great start. It's been great to have kids on campus. Teachers and staff are working harder than ever, and I've only been around for 12 years, and Dr. Dial's been around longer than I have, but I've never seen anything like this, and credit to the people that work here for things going as well as they have so far.
Thank you. Our middle school principal, Ms. Nelson, is not here. Our high school principal, Dr. Nash.
Our counseling department has started our Signs of Suicide program. We have been training and screening our 9th graders to look for signs of suicide and in order to kind of help reduce the number of suicide attempts and suicides within our school and our community. Students in the 9th grade have been trained and screened to look for certain signs for themselves and for their friends in hopes that they will report those and look for help. But we are thankful for our counseling staff. I know Mrs. Melton and Mrs. Roberts from the middle school and elementary are also assisting with that. And also students in grades 10 through 12 have already been trained. However, they will get a refresher course, so we're excited about that. And again, our high school staff has been working very hard. We appreciate all the hard work that they do. I know they put in many hours, you know, not just during school, but in the evening and also on weekends. And so we appreciate all the hard work that they do for our students.
Thank you. Our special services director, Mrs. Dalton, is not here. She's in cross country. Maintenance director, Monty Valentine.
We brought back 5 retired custodians and maintenance workers to help out. They did a lot of things like installing water bottle filling stations, cup holders beside them, taking out the trash after the breakfast and the lunch, sanitizing, bathrooms, ball games. It was really a big help. I'd just like to thank all of them. I think we're off to a good start.
Thank you. We don't have anybody from Bears Den. Open, Ms. Kayla Harper.
Hi, I just want to kind of echo what everyone else is saying. I'm extremely proud of our team and all the changes I've thrown their direction this year. I left you guys a binder up there with some pictures, and it has pictures from elementary, high school, taken from multiple staff members of things that we've been doing in the cafeterias. Tomorrow we're going to kick off with our first birthday celebration in elementary, so we're excited to do that. We're having slushies and pizza, balloons, and some prizes, so we're just going to keep going.
Something that Kayla came to me a week and a half ago, probably. Obviously, we're feeding in several different locations. At high school, we feed in 3 different locations, so she was concerned about keeping everything hot and hot lunches. So she and I worked on it, and we should be getting some warmers at the high school. So when the food comes over, it stays warm for that second lunch. So I appreciate her noticing that and addressing that issue. Just not something that I would have picked up on, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the elementary, is that a totally different group that cooks for them?
It is. It is a different group that cooks for the elementary. So we started off in the high school changing a lot of processes.
But are you in charge of the elementary?
I am in charge of elementary too, and I spent most of the week there this week. And we're changing some processes there. I've been talking with some of the teachers. We're getting some teachers' meals lined out for teachers. And we're doing birthday celebrations, so yeah, we're getting there too.
Good, because all the complaints that I've gotten in the last 2 weeks have to do with the food at the elementary school.
Food at the elementary, I can assure you that those are being addressed, and that my time is divided between them, but I have been spending more time at elementary as well.
Now, I've been getting pictures of the high school food. I would have no problem.
So some of those
There's
pictures
some
and that
good
are
looking
also
stuff there.
elementary.
But now the pictures I got at elementary, no,
Yeah.
not touching that stuff.
So, yes,
So-
we're working on that as well, and like, so we're changing some processes and changing things up and getting the staff out, talking to the children, finding out what the children like or don't like. For example, the other day, we served sloppy joes, and I went out and I thought sloppy joes will be a hit, and I walked around and nope, it wasn't. So that won't be on our menu again. So it's gonna just be a process of learning the kids what they like and changing it up where we need to.
Good, thank you very much. That's
You're very
good.
welcome, thank you guys.
Thank you. Our administration reports, Dr. Powell.
Mr. Dalton and I are kind of do this together. I'll kick it off and he's going to follow up. So we have quite a bit of information. Just last month, the solar panel study was approved by the board and started today. I talked to Mr. Schrock September 2nd, 3rd, that Tuesday, first week. He had just gotten back from out of town, so he was pretty busy, but he called me yesterday and wanted to come today, so he started that process today. Monty took him around and he's getting some information from the city as well. And we hope to have him on our agenda next month for the presentation of the study. He thought he could have it done by then. He's going to follow a little closer in time. Also, the USDA extended their feeding program. So all students get to eat free breakfast and lunch. It's like summer school. Breakfast and lunch are free during summer school. They've extended that through the end of the school year. They are talking about doing it through the rest of the school year, but that information has not come out yet. We've received up to date today $81,050.09 to date from Douglas County for COVID response of their $1.5 million. So we appreciate them and like to thank the county commissioners, Carrie Davis, who's the county clerk, Teresa Miller, the county treasurer. They have been wonderful to work with throughout this process. There is more to come on that, which I'll talk about, but to date, it's $81,050. We wrote and received 3 different grants this month as well. Part of it's stimulus dollars that came to the governor's office that he released to DESE. So those are a transportation supplement. So this was a grant that helped offset some of the cost for meal delivery last spring. So that's $21,781.25. And then there are 2 connectivity grants, so technology grants. The first one is the Missouri Connectivity Access. It is $12,000 from the state and it's matched by the county, so that will be an additional $12,000. And that is to extend our Wi-Fi access outside of our buildings. They want people to, whether it be nights or weekends, be able to access Wi-Fi if they don't have it at home in our parking lots. We put that in, one in by the PAC building last spring when we had to shut down so kids could get Wi-Fi access if they didn't have it at home. So we're going to do it along this back stretch now in the middle school parking lot, the gravel parking lot out back, over by the elementary. So those grants have been approved, so that has been ordered. And then the Connectivity Connections grant, and I talked briefly about it last month, but that is a $53,620 grant from the governor's office through federal funds, and that is also going to be matched by the county. So $107,240 to purchase, it's wireless devices. So we had already ordered 260 wireless devices that we had budgeted for last month. That's going to help the district. It's going to bring some dollars back into the district from that expense. But then we talked to our young teachers, our K-1 teachers, and they feel like iPads are something that will be very beneficial for their K-1 kids. So we're able to order 200 iPads as well for K-1. So we're excited about that. So we're getting about $146,000 worth of technology, and it's going to cost the district about $30,000, which we'd already approved a $58,000 expense last month. So it'll save us $28,000. So that's all great news. COVID update. This is where Mr. Dalton and I are going to kind of go together. Just want to give you an update on kind of where we are. Today, as of today, we have 36 students quarantined, K-12, this is pre-K-12, 3 staff quarantined, 1 substitute quarantined. We have 1 positive staff member, and we have 1 positive student. So we feel like because of what our staff is doing, fighting a good fight, we feel like we are in much better shape than most districts around us, and we're able to hang on to that. We got our 5th graders back on Wednesday. They were excited to be back. I know that lots of smiling faces on Wednesday morning at 8:30 in the 5th grade. So, but it's not easy on our staff. What's happening? So, Mr. Dalton and I are going to discuss that. We've been for the last couple of weeks going around to teachers and talking to them and trying to get input from them on what can we do to make things easier. We think we found some things. We can't make it like a regular school year. It's just, we can't do that. It's not going to work. But you want to start and we'll kind of go back and forth?
Sure. To me, I wanted to start with just kind of the overall, for months, it felt like you heard me talking about all the prep and the work teachers were doing. That is accurate. All this preparing for what we were anticipating school could look like. But it's like anytime else you take on something brand new, and let's be clear, it's brand new. You have to get going to figure out, okay, here's what we thought it was going to look like, here's what we prepared for, here are the issues. And Dr. Dial and I were talking today, and I appreciate this, as we were getting feedback from the staff in the summer, as we were trying to formulate a plan for how we wanted to handle it, they 100% made their input and decisions based on what keeps students and staff safe. And I think when you look at currently the number of COVID cases we have had relative to some of our neighboring districts, that has worked. Now, I think what that has meant is it's meant some extra work in the classroom to implement some of those things. It's extra work, and for the cafeteria staff to do some of those things, it's extra work to keep safety in the forefront. So where we're at, you know, it starts high level view. Hey, are there some things just that affect the entire system that we can do that make that easier? And then it comes, hey, I'm touching base with individual teachers. Is it showing you how to use a tool that we've got that changes something for you? It may not affect the person down the hall, but does that help what your issues are? Can I help you with whatever this challenge is? Is it rearranging some supports with, you know, I know we've got some buildings, we've rearranged some para schedules to try to help ease that load in some buildings. I know high school, they're trading off with a colleague different times of the day to, again, try to alleviate some of that so I can try to meet with my virtual students and just do that prep work that I had a conversation with a teacher today. I won't get too specific to know who it is, but 25 plus year veteran, and we're having this conversation, and the teacher said, you know, I'm a first year teacher, you know, and the prep that goes into that, you know, for years the teacher has had these master lesson plans that tweaked and were adjusted. It's like starting over. Not that they're having to abandon those lesson plans, but to come or to modify that to make it fit those virtual students. It's just a massive undertaking for those folks. You know, we talked about, and this there was no way to control as we, again, took on the virtual option, just, I hate to say supply and demand, but just depending on what the demand was for virtual classes at, I'll use a middle school example, how many students wanted virtual in 6th grade versus 7th grade, it just made that process different. Even within the same building, bordering grade levels, you know, 6th grade, there were so few that we couldn't have just a standalone virtual hour for every one of those teachers. So they're having to switch and change, and what that process looks like is one thing. You go up to 7th grade, there were enough students that signed up for virtual. There's a dedicated math hour for virtual students. There's a dedicated English hour. And not that one's, we might argue that, not that one's easier than the other. It's just probably cleaner in one of those processes than it is the other. And strictly from the number of students and parents that wanted to take advantage of that option. So it's identifying those challenges. We've got lots of things on the table that we're discussing.
Trying to take some of those challenges and make them easier for teachers. You know, I had one teacher, she said, all I need is a lapel mic. It would make my life better. So when she's recording her lessons, she can record it on the board because she doesn't think the sound quality is good enough. I can fix that for her. We ordered them and she'll have it Tuesday. So those are the easy things. You know, the hard things are just teachers that are working hard. They don't want to miss one kid. You know, families that have chosen virtual, you know, they're concerned about, I have to make contact with this kid. You know, even if the kid's not responding, they keep trying and they keep trying and they keep trying. And I think the stress of them worrying about that child leads to anxiety just about the system. So, and we're continuing, you know, looking at options, talking to teachers about things that, you know, we, at the high school level, because of so many electives, you know, Mr. Dalton and I have talked about what can we do to alleviate part of that anxiety. So, you know, maybe we shouldn't be offering every elective virtually. Maybe we ought to be paring that back. So that's conversations we're going to have at the high school with those high school teachers and see what they want to do. So, anything else we missed?
It is. I mean, it is just you prepare, you settle in is the wrong word. You get started and then you start identifying, okay, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is something we didn't anticipate. Because it is. It is a brand new undertaking.
I met with the 7th grade team yesterday, Mrs. Nelson. You know, they just had some simple questions, but you know, during that virtual hour, if they had a kid that was virtual because they have a virtual hour. Can the child, if the parent will bring him, he needs some extra help, can I bring him in during my virtual hour? Well, sure you can. That made 3 of them feel better, because they knew they needed to address a few issues and they thought it would be face-to-face if they could get the parent to bring them in. We're continuing to talk to teachers to figure out what we can do to make their life easier, make their job easier, because we don't want them working at 8 o'clock at night. We want them to be home and be with their family. And virtual kids have to know, there's a set of office hours, but this is when I can contact you. You can't set an appointment at 8:30 at night, because that teacher needs to be with their family.
That's something that the quality that makes our teachers exceptional in the classroom is what's making this very hard to navigate. And I have had multiple conversations in the last week with teachers, because what they want to do is accommodate every single varied schedule. And what that means is they're on the clock meeting with kids from 6:30 in the morning, probably not as many want to meet at that time as there is at 10 o'clock at night. Those school hours are still, here's my classroom hour, 8 to 3:30, that's when the class is being held. They're going to have it other times, that they're still always, they've always graded papers and done those types of things there. But it's not fair to them to try to accommodate all hours of the day. That's not the expectation. And I hope that, for them to hear us say that, we don't expect them to be on call at all hours of the day. Because it's not sustainable, it's not fair to them. And I think we'll take care of themselves. Yep. Those office hours, I'm using office hours. We're talking a lot about that virtual student. If there's a designated virtual hour, that student, that is the time to connect. We recognize there will be something can't connect at that time. That's the exception, not the rule. Just trying to get around and talk to folks, identify specific things we need to address. That's kind of where we've been the last several days. Questions?
As board members, we are getting feedback too from the teachers. They're barely able to keep their head above the water, and it's time. They're being required to do too much in the amount of time that they have. So yeah, they're working until midnight, past midnight. I was one of the ones that wanted to request for you guys to tell us how you can lighten the burden on the teachers. I haven't heard a lot. Maybe after the Monday meeting we'll have some better input for us on that. But from some of the ideas that I've heard are just being able to give them more time to do what they need to do, such as the PLC meetings you have. If they're not vital to what they have to have right now, let's give them that extra hour to do other things a week. Let's drop that off. Virtual, I call it truancy. If a virtual student is not connecting with them, and they're calling, they're using their time up.
Correct.
Maybe we can bring in a sub-teacher or two, someone that would be willing to make those phone calls to the parent, to let them know what the problem is. Is it something to do with connecting to the internet, or is it just a problem of actual truancy, not wanting to do the work? And take that load off of the teacher, to where they're not calling at 8 o'clock and figuring out, why is the student not connecting and doing the work that they need to do. If we have a classroom that is enormous with a lot of problems going on, we might consider splitting the class, bringing in a sub, and dropping the student level of that class down to where they can handle it better. I'm sure there's some classrooms that have less students in them, and there's probably some classrooms that have, maybe 25, 30 people in it. If that's an issue,
there might be a few.
If that's an issue, it might be something to look at. It just might be something to look at. Virtual teaching aids. There are tons of teaching aids out there, but the policy of this school is to just use those pretty much as a supplement. But there are people out there that have already got all the slides and everything for virtual. if we allow those teachers to search, as long as it meets the DESI standards, why not let them get those and pull them in to where they're not scanning and making every day up? It's already out there. There's people that have got it for the whole year, every day for the whole year, for small amounts of money. I can come in and talk to you about some of
No,
those.
so,
But
are you under the
it's-
impression they've been told they can't use those outside resources?
I am under the impression that they're always told that, you know, it's pretty much, you need to come up with a curriculum that you can use supplements. Maybe we need to go into just a little bit more of letting them pull in some, since this is a virtual thing that's new.
Right.
Maybe let them pull something in that actually might give them the virtual lessons that they need for the whole year, every
I
day.
probably need to,
Because-
so some of those resources we talked about, those trainings on this, some of that's what those are.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
some of that probably need to follow up with some of those folks.
Okay, yeah. I mean, some of this stuff will give them more time to deal with.
Sure.
It's new for the kid too, you know, that's in the virtual. I mean, it's harder for them to pick it up because they're at home, it's a different thing. That teacher, if they can use those virtual aids and not have to worry about coming up with them, they can actually focus on that student and find out, you know, what they're not picking up and help them out. There's a lot of little things. Are we connecting with other districts to see what they're doing and picking up on, you know, what's working for them? That's something we can do.
Yeah, I had 2 phone calls yesterday, getting feedback from a couple others. We get phone calls a lot, asking about our protocols and what we're doing and how we're doing it. But we talked to Mr. Nolan, I talked to one yesterday, and I talked to another one yesterday. So, yeah, we are in superintendents and system. We are in constant communication about what's working with you, what's not working with you, and initiating yesterday, virtual yesterday.
I know there's some schools that are actually teaching the seated class as the virtual. So
Yeah.
basically the kids have got the computer in front of them, the same as if they were virtual, and they're doing this every day in the classroom so that if they go virtual, they're completely used to it.
And that's
We've got some teachers doing
Yeah,
that.
that's actually why
that
our
is-
5th grade went so well. Because our 5th grade teachers did such a good job training those kids to be ready to go virtual.
Mhm.
It was seamless for them. And by, 8:30 that next morning when I was in that classroom, 4 teachers, or 3 teachers, they had kids logging on, ready to go.
So, yeah, that can be to the point that you don't even actually need the extra virtual teacher. And you don't have to have students that, once they go virtual, have to bounce or have to stay in the classroom virtual. They can't go to virtual because a lot of, I think what we're doing here is the virtual and the seated is not exactly the same thing every day. The exact same lessons. So if you can coordinate that to where it's the same, you can actually move students from a classroom that if you have to take that student virtual because they're quarantined, you could actually put them with the virtual teacher because you're teaching the exact same thing every day in the same class. Is that why we don't move them over there right now? Is so that
That's what we do.
we
That is what happens.
our classroom teacher doesn't have to teach virtual?
Very rarely. Now, if it's a quarantine kid that may be coming back.
Yeah, I may not be understanding what you're saying.
Yeah. So if a kid chooses to go
So-
virtual.
So if you've got a kid in the classroom and they are quarantined,
Right?
and you're anticipating them coming back to the classroom, and there's a virtual teacher for that grade, if that student can move over to virtual because they're teaching the exact same thing, that will relieve that classroom teacher from having to do the virtual. And then they can move back from virtual back into the classroom and they don't miss a beat because they're doing the exact same thing every day. And that's happening at other schools.
We've got to have some here. Now, there may be a setting where it's not, but
You understand
I know in
that?
high school now.
Because right
So I'm
now,
understanding what
right
you're
now,
saying.
one of the burdens on the teachers is whenever they lose a class, a student
Yes.
to quarantine, now they have to start making a lesson for that student.
You're talking about one setting. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Right,
about.
okay.
We'll follow.
It's something to look into.
Yeah.
That, and when you hear me talk about, it just is different from one setting to the next. I know what you're talking about. We have multiple settings where that's exactly what happens. Student goes to quarantine, they join that virtual class that's already taken place because it mirrors the seated class.
Yeah.
Now, we have other settings.
When they
We need to talk about that.
mirror, it's
Yep.
easier to move them
Yes,
back and forth.
Correct.
Right. I don't think it happens in all of our
Correct, that's what.
It might be something to push towards, to help.
So, we're doing fairly well as far as students and managing students, and we're still working to make it better for teachers and staff. I don't think anybody anticipated 290 kids going virtual. But we will continue to improve and make it better for our staff. They have been phenomenal and working hard.
Is Monday a professional day?
It's a PD day, but I think we have.
We're doing exactly what you're talking about. We're
Then listen.
6-hour day. We have
So the
1
only-
hour required. Yeah, that's,
The
they've got an all-day leader and me training.
That's the only.
Yeah.
The middle
That's
school and
a
high
big
school
commitment to
have, they have 1 hour intruder training. We're doing it virtually. So obviously you can't do intruder training face to face to their people. So they'll have 1 hour and the rest of the day that they will be in their rooms.
They're either be in the room working or
Working with
if they want to meet with somebody who's using a tool they want to know more about, we're giving that opportunity. But the idea is to give as much time as possible. Yeah. In the middle school, high school level.
I know before, this is kind of changing the subject a little bit, but it's still COVID related. But before the end of, maybe it was last week, there was a lot of teachers wondering, what would become of them if they were quarantined or if they contracted it, and what their pay and compensation would look like. Would you want to?
Yeah, so we are, and teacher, well, I mean, we talked about that with them, but I'll refresh everybody's memory. So if a teacher is quarantined and they aren't sick, they're fine, and they are logging in and still providing instruction for their classroom, nothing happens. Nothing. There's no leave taken because they are working. They're just working from a different setting at home. We've had several teachers do that. The federal government passed an COVID leave, so it's 80 hours of COVID leave, so basically 2 weeks. That doesn't subtract from their sick leave either. So if they are quarantined, or if they get sick, they have 2 weeks.
14 days or?
It's 80 hours.
80 hours.
So a teacher's 7.5 hours a day, so it would be 14 calendar days, or actually more than that. You take a half hour from every day, so it would be 10. It'd be 11 and a half.
So 80% of that is covered by?
All of it's covered. None of it. It's all covered by the district. It's just COVID leave. It's another type of leave. We don't get any reimbursement for it. We just don't count it towards the teacher's leave at all.
Okay.
So if they also passed if they have to take care of a family member, there's 80 hours of COVID leave. It's at 2/3 pay. We give them the option of they can take their leave versus the 2/3. Or if they can still do their job from home, we let them do their job from home. Even if they had to stay home with a kid that was quarantined, if they can teach from home, we're good, and we don't charge them anything.
So there's 2 sets of standards there versus if you got COVID or you're quarantined, or versus you
Yes.
have to take care of a
And
family member.
that came down from the feds. That's correct.
Mhm.
So,
I know that the place I work, they tried to decide if they were going to do a percentage or, they were looking at what they were going to do, and they decided to go ahead and, for the employee, basically, to give them 100%.
and that's what we've done with every employee at this point. We haven't had an employee that has used any leave at this point.
So you just paid them 100% of
Yeah,
what they've gotten?
yeah.
Okay.
Because-
Is that what we're going to continue to do?
Yes, that is my intention.
So if a teacher or a worker at this school, I'd like to see that with any person that the school is paying, basically, and in contact with the kids every day. If they contract or they get quarantined, they will receive 100% of their pay for 2 weeks.
So if they contracted it, it's funny, so if they contracted it at school, then we also have to look at work comp as well. So we had 2 staff members this summer that contracted it at school. There was no question how they got it. So we turned that into work comp. And work comp's an interesting thing. So work comp pays you 2/3, but they pay you 7 days a week. And no taxes are taken out of it. But we have to do, so we haven't had anybody contracted at school besides those 2 that I'm aware of.
How do you know when they're in an environment like this that's so
You don't.
rich to get it?
You don't.
So I mean, how would you make that determination?
So the 2, it was easy because we knew exactly who they came in contact with that was positive.
It's the contact tracing.
That contact tracing piece. It was easy. Everybody else, we had just, it didn't matter whether they got it here or got it somewhere else. Usually they tell me who they came and come in contact with, and we support them through that process and make sure that they have every avenue to receive their full pay and not have any deductions.
Well, that's what I'd like to see happen here.
And that's what's
I mean,
happening.
because, you know, we're requiring them right now to
Yeah.
work way more hours than they normally
Absolutely.
work. And I can't see, being in an environment that's potentially hazardous to catch it, I can't see us not giving them 100% of what they would have gotten if they were here.
And that's what we're thinking.
And that's what we plan on
Continue
continuing to
to
do.
do.
Okay. I don't know if the teachers all know that.
Well,
So
we talked
might-
about that in my opening, but I'll do it again. I'll send
And that would just not be teachers only, that would be
Yeah, staff.
custodial,
Yep.
that would even be bus drivers, anyone that's in contact with them. I know the bus thing would be complicated,
Well, they're so,
right? It'd be a different type of figuring it out.
I haven't had.
Yeah, hopefully we won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that the teachers do know that, and there's been question, I've actually been questioned by 3.
Oh, that's
So, okay.
It's easy. Okay.
Good.
We're good.
Next on our agenda is discussion and action items. First item is early retirement incentive.
So this is a yearly update. We have this policy, but the board has to approve it each year. So teachers that are going to retire, it's just an incentive to let us know early. It's not a large amount of money, but it the sooner they let us know, that goes on to their salary, that counts towards their retirement benefit. But it just, it's $400 for December 1st, $300 for January 1st, $200 for February 1st. It also, that same policy for late resignations does have a penalty for late resignations. The penalty after 5/1 to 5/31 is $250 for non-tenured. June 1st to June 30th for non-tenured is $500. June 2nd to June 30th for tenured teachers is $500. July 1st to July 31st for all teachers is $1,000, and anything after August 1st is $2,000. But we have to approve that.
Is that the same every year?
Yeah, it's been the same.
Is that your recommendation?
Yeah, it's never changed. As long as I've been here, that policy's never changed.
And you recommend it?
Yeah.
We need a motion to approve policy GCPB, early retirement incentive. Troy makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mark, second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion passed.
I do want to let you know, so as long as the letter's in my office by February 1st, or January 1st, or December 1st, doesn't mean it has to be acted upon by the board. So you act on it that month. So let's say we don't have until December 17th board meeting. As long as I had it by December 1st, we still give them that $400 because they let us know. It's not, it has to be turned in and approved by the board.
Next item is the 2021 Special Education Compliance Plan.
So this also has to be approved every year. We use the state model for our special education compliance plan that makes sure that we are meeting all state and federal mandates and guidelines, and those change every year. It would be very difficult and be very expensive for us to hire an attorney to be sure that our compliance plan was correct. So the state provides one for us, and we, again, it's a yearly approval. So Mrs. Nolan, we uploaded the changes to from last year and the plan itself.
Need a motion to approve special education compliance plan for year 2021. Dan makes a motion. Do we have a second? Mark seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next item, 2021 Ava R-1 assessment plan.
All right. What the district assessment plan is, we basically go through and list out, even include a timeline there for the entire range of assessments, ranging from IQ tests that we use to the standardized tests, MAP and EOC assessments that we are required to give, ACT, SAT assessments that are offered, all the way to physical fitness tests that we use, and vision and hearing screenings. Just an entire range of assessments that the school district uses. I'm not going to read through this entire thing. I'm going to go through and point out the changes and try to explain the rationale for some of that. And any questions that you've got, let me know. When we go through page 3, really this isn't a change. I just want to point this out. There's some language there that talks about how we review our standardized assessment data, MAP and EOC tests. Normally, this time of year, next month, we're getting that data together and getting it to our teachers so that they can identify areas of strength and weakness for the students they currently have and reflect on the performance of the students they had the year prior. We didn't have those assessments last spring. So you're going to hear me mention an assessment. A lot of our teachers are taking advantage of it. I know Miss Debbie, we talked about it. Not requiring teachers to do it, just given our circumstances, but I have tried to meet with every teacher that it's available for, just to let them know what the state has made available to us. And basically for that reason, just so they would have some comparable data to review. You know, I've got some teachers that, based yearly on what they're having to undertake this year, hey, this isn't going to fit during the time frame that it's available to us. I understand, and I've got some teachers, Ms. Debbie was one, she said, I'm doing it this day. She can tell me right then when she wanted to do it. So we just...
It's a little different because our fourth graders have never taken this test ever.
Yeah. And that's...
And we want to know, we would like to know, let them have a practice run at it before.
Exactly correct.
That's it, she pointed that out, that's just an additional, forget the data, those students in years past will have done it before. She wants to expose it to them, so when they do it this spring, it's not the first time they've seen that. But in addition to that, she'll have some information that she otherwise wouldn't have had.
She knows where those gaps were from 3rd grade. Now,
related, as I'm talking about MOLE, like folks know what that is. Basically, it's a practice version of our MAP and EOC assessments. But Department of Education is doing a ton of work, putting together some really good resources. That I'll just say that 15 years ago, we just didn't have those types of resources. But right now, we're kind of limited to our access to a certain time window. I sat in on a conference call today with someone at the state level, and they're working so that that's available just for a wider period of time, so our teachers can plan for that more readily. You know, this year was right at the start of the year. Well, with everybody taking on the changes we're already having to, just made that difficult. But I just wanted to point that out. Just skip through. We added, this isn't some added language really, just want to point out what it is. Starting there on page 7, you see a timeline of assessments. You see all the national ACT dates. Those aren't dates that our students are required. Those are just the dates that are available. So students would have that information. When you get to page 9, something else that has to be included in our assessment plan is our test security when it comes to our standardized assessments. We added some language there on page 9 and item 3 and 4. That language for years talked about handling test booklets, paper materials, things like that. Since the assessments have all gone online, it's We still have some paper test booklets, but predominantly we're talking about login IDs and passwords. So we had to add some language for the security on those types of materials. There's some language, this was interesting, this came out late last year, right before what was supposed to be a testing window. You look at number 2 there, we had to add language about smartphones and smartwatches on test security. Well, you were thinking about just the access that's available. We had to include language for that. I believe those are the only other changes in the assessment plan. Any questions on that?
But Mr. Dalton won't tell you is he was part of that process with DESI this summer, helping identify and develop the tests that they're providing.
State Department is trying to do some good work, put together some good resources. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. No, that.
One thing that I've been thinking about is, could DESI or MSBA, I'm sure they're all probably, well, I don't know if DESI's really trying to help the teachers out that much. I'm sure they are, but is there anything politically that can be done by the board or by you that could help our teachers?
What are you thinking politically?
Well, I don't really know.
Okay.
You're the expert.
Yeah, so, though we are in a state of emergency, I've had lots of conversations with the DESI about lots of things, and I've learned some things. During a state of emergency, you can waive portions of statutes, but you can't replace it with anything. So, the 1,044-hour limit is what it is. We have to attend school for 1,044 hours. My understanding from the commissioner in the conference call I was on with the governor is that he is not going to make a decision to reduce that at this point. Just trying to think what else the state or politically to help teachers would be. They're not going to waive the number of hours that we have to attend school. I mean, that's been pretty clear to us.
What about maybe eliminating some of the paperwork that teachers have to do through DESI?
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
So federal compliance paperwork, and the IEP stuff's never going to go away. They're not going to waive that at all.
Worse.
Yes.
They were just
It's gotten worse. Yes. We had to put a new form in that we had to get to every special education, Form G, I think it was, everybody with an IEP, we had to get that to parents so that means you had to hold an IEP meeting and
it's just a time-consuming process.
So,
you're right.
for teachers and the paperwork they have to do with DESI. Let me think about that, Dan. I'm trying to think what teachers, BJ would love to not have to do some paperwork with DESI, but let me talk to some teachers and see what they're thinking about that, what that would be.
It's kind of like DESI's got a free hand to just roll out whatever they want to do, pretty much. It seems to me like.
Yes.
And the only way is somehow get together as a group and say, we could do something here to improve that.
Yeah.
And as a group, and a large group, you're going to have to.
Yeah, that's easy. We could come up with something to get DESI not to make us to do. I could get a large group of people together to talk to them about it. Let me talk to some teachers and see what if there's work that they're having to do that's a state requirement. Just trying to
So much of it, as I'm talking assessment, we're taking it down from
Yeah.
the federal level, and we
Yes.
have to implement it.
And it's been pretty adamant from the commissioner.
Send some
that
language out.
We will not waive the testing requirement. I really like our commissioner, but we don't always see eye to eye on lots of things. And she listens, but I'm just trying to think what that might be. You got any thoughts?
So we get past, I want to brag on this part, because the work that they're doing developing these resources, it is classroom teachers doing the work. We've had some teachers participate. So I feel like I would not have started up multiple years ago, but now that particular work, I believe there will be good resources. I believe there are things we can put teachers' hands in. What you're talking about, hey, I'm looking for a lesson idea, and I'm having, hey, here's a resource that master teachers that have done this in the classroom and under Missouri guidelines and put together. I believe there's some things like that that they're trying to work on and develop. But now, you know, some of those other parts don't make as much sense as what I just described. Correct.
We're still trying to think what DESE requires a teacher with. I mean, the IP issue is, that's the feds. So, one thing that DESE, they haven't changed it, so we're just doing it the way we need to do it anyway, is if a kid gets quarantined, DESE said we have to provide 5 hours of homebound instruction in order to count them in attendance. To me, that's ludicrous. First of all, I'm not going to send a teacher to somebody's house if they're quarantined. You know, so that, or we're going to do it virtually. What we are doing, you know, we are trying to serve that kid. And they, my question to them when they said that to us in August, well, I can put them in that virtual class. Well, that doesn't count. I don't care. We're going to bank on last year's attendance for our funding anyway. So we're not putting our teachers, trying to find homebound teachers to spend 5 hours a week extra with one child. We're just serving them virtually during the school day. This makes absolutely no sense to me.
So is there a way though to let the teacher that is teaching seated not have to teach virtual?
So
that is the kicker right there. That's what's putting them in massive overtime.
And I don't disagree with that.
And the way I look at it is if the virtual teacher for that was on target with the lessons each day, it would be easy to jump them back.
And that's fairly easy to do in teachers that teach when we have virtual hours, like at the elementary school, most of the middle school, some high school classes. Where it becomes very tough is when you have singleton courses. There's nobody else that teaches that course. There's 3 kids virtual.
So could we equip the seated teacher with some technology?
Yes.
To make that recording a lot easier during class time, so they don't have to go back and just create it again?
Correct. And that, Mr. Dalton visit, that's been one of his missions this week, is talking to them about record it while you're doing it to the rest of the class. Don't do it again. So what do we need for you to be able to do?
Troy, and that's what, I don't know how to say this other than to say they want their recording to be perfect.
Well, they can go back and they can do it
So I
at the ready
listen,
time.
you're preaching to the choir. This is the exact conversation I had with a teacher today. And I think that teacher's to that point, because I think that's always happening. Hey, I'm going to stay after. This is going to be the perfect video. That's what I'm saying. I said, stop. You've got to stop. You can't keep this up. Record it while you're doing it, because it, in my mind, and now the teacher may tell me why this is not so, in my mind it's going to be way faster to edit the video I already have than to re-record the entire thing by.
Yeah, they can even look at
but
the
again,
watch and see what minutes they are going to have to go
Troy,
to.
that's what I meant when I said the thing that makes them so great for our kids. That's what's also where our mountains are trying to tackle. They say, I want this to be the absolute most perfect product I can.
But are we
So
giving?
that's what we're trying to tackle.
Are we giving all those teachers that need that technology? Are we giving it to the?
That's what he was talking
They have
about.
So that's what I'm talking about, is I need to know what they don't have. So that's part of our conversations. What don't you have that you need? And I'm like,
Do they always know though? I mean, have they
Well,
seen it out there?
so we're,
That's where they know.
like the little lapel mics, we bought those. So, you know, do we need a different camera? Do we need a different way to, we bought,
Webcams, which one?
webcams to make it easier for them. Thinking that. So, But that's just part of, because not every teacher wants every piece of equipment. Some are different than others, so that's part of that conversations with individual teachers. Figure out what they need, what works for them, and how they want to attack.
But I'm hearing that they have laptops that aren't functional. I'm hearing that from.
We had one this week.
No, I have had 6 complaints
Okay.
that their laptops are in IT constantly being fixed and everything like that.
Well, every teacher in the district has a Chromebook as well. And they have their desktop or their laptop and have a Chromebook as well. So they have 2 devices. I know that we are addressing some of those issues and we've replaced some of those computers.
Right, but when you replaced them, did you replace them with new laptops or did you give them some that were 80 years old?
We gave them a tower to get started because we needed to replace it that day. So if we need to replace that laptop, we're going to replace that laptop. Or does it need to be rebuilt because it has a virus on it? So we put in a tower that we had to get them going that day. So if we need to replace the laptops, we need to do that.
Well, you're telling us that we're gonna have $28,000 left.
Correct.
So
It
I
doesn't matter
think,
about that.
but what I'm saying is, these teachers are under enough pressure as it is. If they don't have a laptop, that even have, if it crashes one time, I think they need a different laptop. I'm sorry, I just do. Okay, they are under enough pressure as it is. They do not need faulty equipment.
I agree with that.
And the Chromebook can't do all of
No.
it.
It can't do everything. It can do the recordings, it can do stuff for Google Classroom stuff, but it's limited. It can't create.
When you're building that,
Correct.
when you're
It can't
building
be-
the daily, the
Correct.
slides and all
Yeah,
that.
That's when they need the laptop.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's.
And I think we
the teacher
have.
I think you're talking about. So-
Well, it's
There's more than one. Yeah.
There's 2 in the middle school, and I've had 4 from the elementary school.
I know about 2 in the elementary. Share their names with me later. I'm gonna go find them in the morning and figure out what's going on and get it fixed. And get Mr. Dunham, so he knows as well, and we'll get it taken care
But
of.
we are
You
going
might
to do
put out a
that.
notice to the.
I think you need
school
to.
To say, hey, are your laptops working correctly?
Yep.
I haven't heard anything about the Chromebooks.
Yeah, I haven't heard any Chromebooks, it's been the teachers' laptops. So I think they need to understand, I think you just need to email all the teachers, and they need to understand if they're having issues with their laptops, they need to get to you immediately or somebody and get them fixed. It's not fair for them to,
I don't disagree.
okay.
Can I say one thing? The desktops too, because my desktop is hooked to micromedia board, where that's how I teach, and my desktop doesn't work.
So see, this,
My, it's just that, and I have talked to Wendy,
Okay.
Ms. Thompson, she said there are no desktops in this district.
I know where there's some right now.
yeah, but we don't want to give them,
No, but to get them going until.
I understand that.
Technology's
Okay.
taking a while to get here,
Okay.
but.
I'm just saying, I've heard that they've been given 8-year-old laptops from the Lawler era to replace what they have now. Okay, I'm saying, we're under the gun, we're getting all this COVID money, let's take care of these people.
I don't disagree with that.
All right. And I'm not a techno nut to begin with at all.
Are those loaners that they're going until we can get them replaced?
Yes.
Yeah.
The issue is
getting them here.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that is the tip.
And I understand
Here's
that.
this, it's, because I mean, it's not like waiting for the ship from,
Kansas City.
yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, but the thing is, if we can walk into Best Buy, or if we can walk into somewhere and buy them a laptop, then we need to do it. Okay, I think all this board would agree, they need to be taken care of. We can walk into Best Buy or wherever and buy her a desktop, then we need to do it. Because that's what she needs to function for her job. So I believe that's what needs to be done.
Yeah, if we can make
That's
the
just
job
my
easier,
opinion.
it's absolutely do
I'll come see you in the morning, Debbie, and figure out what's going on.
Well, it will sometimes work, but
Doesn't
it'll set for 10 minutes spinning before we can pull up my downloaded lesson, and it's
Okay.
just, we have to figure out something else.
We'll figure it out.
But is that the computer or is that our system somehow?
So we have more bandwidth now than we've ever had. We've increased it every year for the last 5 years, and we're not, you can monitor that, and we're not even close to capping out our, so we used to have 50 meg, Dr. Hall told me. We were at 100 when I got here, we're over 500 now.
Yeah, so see, that shouldn't.
Yeah, this
that
just shouldn't have
be
anything to do with
happening.
it.
So that's got to be her.
No, Wendy told me it's just an old computer.
And we are
How
due,
old is it?
this is the year to replace. I will tell you, this is the year that we're replacing
Oh, and I get it.
elementary. No, we've done high school, we did middle school. Elementary had the newest. This is the year to replace the middle school computers. Elementary school teacher computers, sorry. Elementary.
Okay, well, most of the complaints have been from elementary, which is understandable.
It's over 13 years old because it was there when I got there.
Now,
that's
so
the way
we
it's
don't
going.
replace
That's
stuff,
ridiculous.
That's the way it's
we
going.
don't replace stuff more timely than
No,
that.
we do.
Well, we did on the Google, they were what, 3 or 4 years old?
So
We just
Chromebooks.
replaced some Chromebooks.
No, those are 5.
5, that's,
So we try to turn
Wait.
teacher, since I've been here, we've replaced middle school and high school teacher computers. And this year was the year to replace elementary teacher computers.
Okay. But you will address all of this?
Absolutely.
Okay, because they need
Yep,
to have stuff
they
that
need
works.
Stuff that works.
Because I get really pissy when mine doesn't. So. I have,
That was July.
I have IT on speed dial.
That was July.
I get really mad.
can we edit that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Approve the professional development.
I'm sorry.
Or the assessment plan. We need to approve.
We need a motion to approve the professional
No,
development
assessment plan, sorry.
assessment plan. We need a motion to approve the 2021 Ava R-1 assessment plan. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Troy makes the motion, Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed 6-0. Next item is our 2021 Ava R-1 Professional Development Program Review.
I'll do the same thing, kind of talk about what the process outlines and then the things that we addressed. What we have 3 representatives from each building. What we have gone to the last several years, partly because there was a requirement change on the account coding, partly because we think it makes it more equitable for each building. So what we had for years, we had this pool of professional development funds. I know as a building principal, I mean, I knew what I was spending, I didn't know what anyone else was spending, so that I always felt like I'm spending more than my share. I've got to be careful, I'm saying no to things. So what we try to do is every year we identify, okay, high school, here's your portion of that fund, middle school, here's your portion, elementary. And what that has led to is each building spending their equitable. The buildings we're spending less are spending up to what they should be spending anyway, but it just makes that a little cleaner, easier to see as a building principal, I think. Those PD requests, we've moved a lot of that to using online tools, which being where we are now, we see that was probably a good idea. Just streamline some of that process. We try to make that take up as little of their time as possible. The teachers are able to submit those requests. They have to be signed off on by building principal. That then goes to the committee. Committee approves those requests or disapproves those or asks follow-up questions. And then once that's finally approved, I send some paperwork to the teachers so they can get started on that. That is the PD process. Changes as we go through this. On the 3rd page there, we have always done a survey to evaluate PD activities, PD process. We've always done that. We used a different tool this last year. It was just a little more thorough. Probably did a better job of identifying some specific areas. Now, I put this caveat on everything. So we've got some specific things we know we want to address. Right now, everything kind of takes a back page to what do we have to have right now. We talked about our back to school PD week that we had before school started. We tried to open that up as much as possible for teachers to have time to prepare. Our day on Monday, we just described that. So we have some long-term goals we know we want to get to. What we're prioritizing today is today. So when we come in Monday, is there some tools you need that's gonna make your job easier? Is there a training, just a thing you and I can visit about that makes your job easier? Otherwise, what we're gonna give you is time to prepare and catch up to where you are, get ahead so that you don't feel so overwhelmed. So I'm gonna go through these things we've identified with the caveat, we know where we're at right now is not where we were when we did this survey. Just identified some specific categories that was focused on, just as far as decision-making and for students and teaching, effective teaching and learning practices. So we've got some long-term goals that we know we want to focus on. There's some language there about incorporating technology in the classroom that has been there for several years. I know as I've had conversations with teachers, we always knew we wanted to use those tools. Obviously today, it's critical that we be able to use those tools. You know, after what we experienced last spring, probably just taking on a different level of, just a different level of priority. Parent support, collaboration. I think I've mentioned this in a different conversation. Something I had to do last spring was a meeting virtually. You know, a meeting I've done every year. You know, you're trying to find a day, you're trying to coordinate a meal, or you're trying to coordinate with everybody's schedules. You get to that date, and whereas I had 40 people planning to attend, I would get there and 6 could make it. Well, doing it virtually, some of those logistics come out. I had, again, historically for that meeting, I've had somewhere between, give or take, around 5 parents be able to attend. I think I had 24 able to attend last year, doing it virtually. I never would have dreamed that that was the way to go. I'll continue to do that probably in the future. We may still try to do a sit-down, face-to-face one. I promise I'll do a version like this. Just because I can recreate that, not have to make arrangements for a building and a setting. It's just something we've learned in this process, and otherwise, I just wouldn't have dreamed that was the best way to do that. But it's certainly made it easier to meet those needs. Really, a lot of the language in this is it's so tied to our district CSIP plan, and that is a document, there's a long-range document, so much of that language does not change that much from year to year. Just some of those areas of focus that I touched on, that may be all the changes. Questions on the PD?
So you talked about, you know, in this professional development plan, you had some wording on the technology in the classroom. Have you looked at, and maybe you've already done it, but you know, Google Classroom has a 10-hour on-the-course class that will help you to master it, so that you don't have teachers wondering, how do I video? I think a lot of them didn't even know how to video here. Is that something, that 10-hour online class, is that something we can incorporate to be part of the professional development?
If you're talking something that's online, we can make that available at any time now. Troy, I'm going to speak from my feedback. What teachers, you tell me if I'm wrong. My experience is what teachers want is to talk to a teacher that is using it in the classroom and have them show them. Am I wrong?
Yes, yes.
If I have a choice to watch it online or sit down with a teacher who is using this tool,
Makes a
we
lot more
prefer to
sense.
sit down with a teacher that's using the tool. Now that is not, it's not always possible, but no, we can absolutely make that available
So,
online.
Yeah, you know, what I'm thinking of is there was a district that had the teachers actually take that course during the summertime before school.
Sure.
And then they had a professional from a college come down and then show them hands-on.
Sure.
So that whenever the school system, whenever it started, if they needed a video or they didn't understand something on Google Classroom, they already knew it.
Right.
They didn't have to go ask the teacher that had already seen it. They were ready to go. So it's just something that, I don't know if that's something you can incorporate halfway through the season or not, but it's something that.
You think about what you asked earlier, you've got to find that balance. Hey, am I taking up all your PD time, or am I giving you as much time as possible to prepare for your classroom? So, Troy, that's the balancing act we're trying to navigate right now. And what I want to be sure I'm doing on the PD days, I give you as much time as possible to work on what you absolutely have to work on. But if there are things you need help with, and that's what I mean, you know, when I'm going around having these meetings, part of what Monday's going to look like is, hey, I'm available if you've got questions and I can help you with it. I'm going to come help you with that specific thing. So we're You're constantly trying to find that balance.
It
Go
just,
ahead.
it just seems like if you had 100 teachers that had a question about something in Google Classroom, if they already knew it,
That's why I
they could
sent out
go
the
in.
survey.
They would have to have you run into each one.
And that was a significant part of the training from this summer.
When we talk about those 300 sessions, those are the kinds of things we were working through. We have some teachers that are Google trained. That's what a lot of that was. Yeah. So no, absolutely, we can build off that. Any other questions on that? That's a good one.
We need a motion to approve it. We need a motion to approve 2021 Ava R-1 Professional Development Program Review. Do I have a motion? Dan makes the motion, Troy seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed, 6-0. Next is, consider pay for substitute teachers.
So, at one point in this district, you got a certain amount if you had a bachelor's degree and a certain amount if you just had 60 hours. And then, I don't know when that was changed before me, it moved everybody got paid $75 a day. Surveyed some districts around us. Springfield, Oakland, they pay more. Most people pay $70, $75. There's a few districts in the SCA. Nobody's below 70. I just think it's time. We're asking subs to do more. We need to raise that pay. I just shot at $80. We can, if we want to raise that, that's fine. But what I do with part of it that's important to me is if we have a teacher, so if we have a teacher test positive and they are out and quarantined, and we hire a sub that is coming in and doing lesson plans and doing the grading and doing all of that work, we need to definitely raise that. I was thinking $100 a day if they are here long-term. So by long-term, I mean 10 days. We have maternity leave teachers that are out for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. They were making $75 a day, and they're doing all the work. So I don't want to, we need to pay them more than we are currently paying them. So $80 gets us to the top of the SCA pay scale for substitutes. So if we wanted to go 85, and somebody asked me about that earlier today, I'm great with that. I definitely think our long-term subs need to be paid more than a sub that's here for a day because they do more work. So my recommendation would be $100 for them.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Just 2 or 3 nights ago on Channel 3, it was talking about Ozark.
Yeah.
They worked so many days, they got
Yeah.
100, and then it went to 115
Yeah.
based on how many days they had. One of my concerns was, I would like to try to get some of those retired teachers that are certified to be subs.
So, long-term subs, we do have several retired teachers on our sub list. I had a question today, so we have a new sub rule. That if you take a high school diploma and a 20-hour course, 22-hour course, you can be a substitute teacher. If we have a long-term sub, we want a certified teacher in the classroom. That is our absolute priority. And we want the teacher, if it's Terry Taylor that's out for 2 weeks, she for sure wants some input on who's going to be in her classroom. They usually find their own long-term sub. We don't have to do it for them, and they bank on retired teachers. Connie Dean is filling, retired teacher certified. She's done our 2 long-terms right now. So absolutely, that's who we want.
So what I was thinking was, the high school grad might do a good job, but they're not going to do nearly as good as a certified teacher would.
Correct.
So I was thinking about $80 for the high school grad, anything less than 60 hours. Then if you have a teacher that has 60 hours, which was our old requirement, would be $100. And this is day 1, this is not accumulated days. And if you had a certified teacher while we have COVID, do 125 a day. And when we go back to normal business, we could drop that maybe back to 115 for a certified teacher. Maybe not just now, but find that sweet spot in there. What are we gonna have to pay a sub to get a certified teacher in the classroom? I mean, I don't wanna just throw money at it needlessly, but, so it would be 60 hours or less would be $80. If you get 60 hours or more, it'd be 100. And right now, if you're certified, it'd be 125.
And after COVID, you think you go to 115?
Right.
It seems like that would, during this time of COVID, it would be desirable to have that 30, 25, 20-year retired certified teacher come in that you don't have to hold their hand at all, versus bringing in a high school. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're gonna have to help them out because they've never done it before.
Absolutely.
So
And
it would
we
be a
definitely
big
want-
advantage.
Yeah. We definitely value our retired teachers, and even, I've had some moms that just got out of teaching because they had kids and they don't want to work full-time, so they sub. But they were teachers and they had a teaching degree. Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Motion's right, I got it all written down.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
We have a motion and a second to pay the high school with the 22 hours of training, $80 a day. For somebody 60 hours plus, $100 a day. And certified teachers during COVID, 125. After COVID, it'll drop back to 115. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is that not gonna change anything for the long term? Are we gonna add anything for long term, or do you think that's pretty much gonna cover it?
125 is
Pretty good,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty good.
These will go away after COVID. So it'll be 115.
Just the 125 goes away after COVID, or does the 102?
No, it just drops, but from what I understand your motion says, was the only thing that changes after COVID, the certified teacher goes to 115.
Yeah,
Everything else stays the same.
right. So 60 hours or less than 60 hours is $80.
Yep.
Okay. And 60 hours or more is 100. The certified would be 125, and it would drop back after COVID to 115.
Yep, that's what I got now.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried, 6-0.
And that will start next month's pay. So we'll start.
Which is when?
October 1?
No, it'll be, so
Pay period. So we start
it'll be,
now.
we're in this pay period. That will start with this pay period that we're currently in.
Immediately.
Yes.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, so it goes back to last week when everything was turned in last week.
Okay.
So part of last week and all of this week and moving forward.
Oh, well, okay, go ahead now.
Next item on the agenda is item E, consider revision of policy GCBDA.
Mr. Johnson, I spoke about this, so I want you to, he and I met about it to be sure that I was correct. So correct me if I say something wrong. Okay. And the request is to change policy GCBDA to the payout for sick leave for teachers. The request is to move the payout, which we need to change that probably now. The request was $52.50 to $80 for teachers that accumulate the 10 days per year, sick days per year. There was no request to change the $30 payout for the teachers who accumulate $15 per year. Also, in the past, when a change was made, they let teachers decide whether they wanted to move between the 15 and the 10. And I would think we would need to open that up for a couple of weeks to allow teachers, if they wanted to switch plans, they could. Did I say that correct?
Yeah, you might, I mean, I don't really care, I guess, how long you get it, but be sure everybody's aware of it.
It'll go out with my board report, and I'll make sure that they
That they have an opportunity to switch.
And I'll send out a form to all of them as well. To all the teachers that are on the 15-day, I'll notify them directly with a form if they want to switch to the new plan.
But you do realize we're moving from $80 to $100.
Well, that's fine. That's what you and I spoke about.
Yeah.
I just wanted
Yeah,
to.
right.
Yeah. So, just needs to be a motion to,
Okay. I'm making a motion to raise the teachers on the 100-day sick pay plan from $52.50 to $100. And give the teachers 30 days or whatever, 30 days to sign over on the new plan or the 100-day plan if they want.
it's the 10-day plan. So teachers can choose 50 or 100 to bank, but it's the 10-day per year plan.
Right.
We have a motion to raise the 10-day plan to $100. Do we have a second? Troy seconds. Any discussion? I have some discussion. Why do we have two plans?
So previously, before 2007 or 8, teachers got 15 sick days per year. And previous administration changed that to 10, but then but put a higher payout for the ones that were at 10. Some wanted to stay in the 15-day plan, and some wanted to, anybody that came in after 07 went on a 10-day plan, but the previous teachers that were here previous to 07 were on 15. Now, they could choose to move to 10 and get paid more on the payout, or they could stay where they were at. They changed policies and they didn't want to make everybody change. They left them, if they wanted to stay, they could stay.
Do you know how many people we still have on the 30-day plan?
36, I looked.
And that leaves how many on the 10-day plan?
80. Because then if you work like maintenance, they're different, because they're on 12 month. If you 10, 11, or 12 month, that, I'm talking about teachers specifically.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed 6-0.
But before we leave, I want to discuss policy on the teacher sick pay. We can still do that, right?
I don't think you're supposed to.
Okay, we'll do it next month.
You want to do what now?
There's policy that says basically in here, if a teacher hasn't been here 10 years or more, it's not going to do us any good to raise teacher sick pay if some of the teachers think that there's some way we're going to take their sick pay away from them.
So what that says is if they resign after a certain date, and when that policy, if they resigned after a certain date, if they hadn't worked 10 years or more, they forfeit their sick leave pay, is what it says.
Right. To me, it should say, okay, if I have a second-year teacher that signed up for her third year and we give her 10 days and she quits early or whatever, to me, she shouldn't get any of those 10 days that she acquired that year, yes. But the 20 days that she's already acquired should be hers or his.
Yeah.
So I would like to change that policy. I just wanted to discuss it tonight. I don't want to have a vote on it or anything, but I wanted to discuss it. It's that simple. I just want to just take out that paragraph. It's where it says on the second page, employees who sign a contract. There's two sentences in that paragraph. I would like to basically take that last sentence out and just reword the first one where it says, shall not be compensated for any sick leave accumulated that year all other accumulated days would be paid.
I don't know when that policy went into effect. It was prior to me, but we can absolutely work on the wording like we did for this one.
I mean, we just need to be on the up and up on that.
There's probably something else we need to discuss too. When a teacher gets ready to retire, isn't there something in there as far as they can't, sick leave or something can't elevate their retirement by a percentage?
That's a PSRS rule, that's state law. So you can't have more than a 10% increase in your salary that is attributable to your retirement. That's, so I couldn't raise, a teacher could not make more than 10% of their pay if they were going to retire next year than they made this year, unless they changed positions. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a PSRS regulation. That's not an Ava School District regulation. So that is, you can't have an increase of more than 10% from one year to the next. If it is over that, they only count the 10%.
So 100 days at $100 is what, $10,000?
$10,000.
And that will definitely be over the 10%.
Yeah, they'll get the max of the 10% go towards retirement.
And
they'll get the rest in cash. Yeah, they'll still get it all.
They're gonna get it all.
Yes.
It just don't count
Correct.
towards it.
Just doesn't count towards
10%.
retirement.
Anything over
To raise
10%.
their retirement.
Yeah, anything over 10% will not raise their retirement.
So, just to put in dollars what we're talking about here, if we could count it all, we would have $10,000 averaged out over 3 years.
Yeah.
Which would be $3,333. And if you were a 30-year teacher, you would get 75% of that. So I don't know what that is, but it's a substantial amount of money.
Substantial amount. I would agree with that. That's not anything we can do about that.
What if we changed our policy and allowed our teachers to take a third or a half of their sick pay if they know when they're going to retire?
They can.
They can.
So a teacher that has, so they can, kind of. So we would probably need to change some policy. So let's say a teacher is on the 100-day plan because and they get 110 and they don't use any of them. They get paid for that 10. Or they can request to be paid down as well. But let's look at that a little closer and see if there's a way to.
That's why I want to discuss it tonight before we start trying to.
Yeah.
You know, if a teacher knows she's going to retire at 20 years and she's on year 18, at the end of that year, she could take a third and then a third and a third and raise her income and raise her retirement, $2,500 a year.
I'll need to look at the PSRS regulations as well to be sure that, but yeah, we can look at it.
Because if we're going to spend this money on raising pay, I want it to be.
Yep, get the biggest benefit.
Right.
They can get. Okay, I'll take a look. I just have to read the PSRS regs.
And you bring us something next month, right? Item F, recruiting and hiring process.
So we had some discussion about this last month. So I put a document in your folder for you to read. Made some changes to our current practice to try to address some of the concerns, I think. I'm not sure I addressed all the concerns, but there are changes in this practice that I think address some of the concerns. What questions do you have of me? Sent this up. I sent it to you last Friday, I think a couple of concerns. We addressed the years of experience on the hiring committee. We addressed that the hiring committee would be developed in consultation with Mr. Dalton or I. We addressed that Mr. Dalton and I would sit in on the interview process, that the votes off the rubric would be done in the room, that we would clearly mark the first and second candidate on what comes to the board. All people would be listed. So,
All people in their qualifications.
yeah.
On that rubric, will there be some clout or whatever to someone that is a person from this area that might be
Would it be weighted?
yeah, would it be for a high school graduate
Yeah. We could
from Ava?
Usually-
I mean, we don't have a whole lot of things in this town to bring kids back for.
There usually is, I will just tell you.
Okay.
If they're from Ava,
Okay.
it's usually weighted a little higher.
Okay.
Just
I mean,
the way it currently is.
yeah,
But-
and you know, sometimes you might have to overlook that person with a little more experience because they might be just looking for a job long enough to go to Ozark to get a job.
Correct.
And you would hate to lose that Ava resident that wants to come back and teach for life over that person.
The perception of longevity, I think is what you're talking about.
Okay, yes, yeah. And I think we owe it to our people.
Yeah.
I mean, Ava doesn't have a whole lot to bring the kids back for. You know, if you're a parent and would like your kid to live here,
Yep.
and they're gonna be a teacher, that would be a plus, you know? So,
Absolutely.
so that would be something that would be weighted in
Yeah.
the rubric.
We can, so I will sit down, and you know, that rubric the questions look a little different depending on the level. There are some basic things that are in all of them.
Mhm.
And teachers need to be part of that process of, you know, Terry Tabor, I keep pointing you out because you're in front of me, is on an interview committee. They're gonna ask you a different question in third grade than they're gonna ask in high school English grade. But there are some basic premises that will be in every one, and I'll work on that.
So there's a few things on there that some wording I don't like. When you get down to the interview section where it says if possible, if available, those kind of words.
Right.
I mean, okay, so you go to halfway down on the first page. Selection of candidates interview, where, second.
Well, I say that just when I say that, sometimes there's not a subject area teacher. You know, you have an art teacher.
Okay, so if there is
Yes,
one.
yes,
that person
that's why I
will
say
be-
that.
Okay.
There's not always another art teacher, or, you have one band instructor.
And do you?
That's why I say
Okay,
if
okay.
possible. That's what that means.
It just seems like that's a lot of room there for me. Since we have the two subject area teachers with expertise in the area being interviewed with the 5 years experience, do we need the two other ones? Do you need that many? So you've already got a lot of people sitting in.
When possible, if you're doing it in the summer, or you're doing it when you can do it, sometimes you don't have people available. I think more heads are better if possible. That's Jason's opinion. I want more input.
Well, the only thing I would like to add, if I was to make a motion, is I would like to have a statement, and before, where I was at with board members being on the interview and wanting to make it even mandatory that a certain amount would be on there. I've kind of relaxed that some to try to make people feel more at ease, but this statement that I've got typed up is board members may attend interviews to observe. Board members will not be a part of the interview questioning the rubric system or take any action to influence the recommendation from the committee. And then there will be a 48-hour notice sent to the board members with interviews, before interviews take place. So basically a notice, and this would be a deal where if a board member wants to sit in, they're just gonna observe. If they don't want to sit in, they don't have to. There's no mandatory. You may find an interview where none show up, or one shows up, or two or three. It would be, I know some people don't have time and don't want to be put on that. So I guess what I'm saying is I would make a motion to accept what you've written with another point down here with what I just read.
And that's open for all 7 board members
If they wanted to.
If they want to.
And there would be a 48-hour notice, they'd have to just put it, if they want to.
If they want to.
It's just,
Yeah,
not managed.
But
you couldn't have
You
more than
you couldn't have four or
posted
more,
meeting.
unless you posted.
well, if you
it.
gave a 48-hour notice, you can post a meeting anyway. It's not that hard to do. Right.
There's a lot of interviews taking place, it'd be hard to keep track of.
I don't,
That'd be hard to keep track of.
I doubt very seriously if there'll ever be four on it. I guess we can deal with that problem if it comes up. We have a motion to approve the plan that Dr. Dial has with an addition on there of board members can attend if they want to as an observer. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Dina seconds. Any discussion?
I guess my only issue with the board member being president, I know it's optional, it's fine, it just doesn't seem like it's the school board's job to do that, and I know Mr. Treadway's mentioned last month that there are other schools that do that. Just because they do, I don't know that they should, in my opinion. I think we hire, school board hires superintendent, and if we want to hire assistant superintendents, that's what we do we hire them to manage. I don't want it to give the impression when board members show up that we don't trust the people we have in place.
I don't think it's as much that as it is when we hire somebody, we're responsible for that. And when we hire somebody and walk out that door, there's times when people come up and say, well, why did you hire that so-and-so? And I think for me, this will give, and I probably won't attend, I don't know if I'll attend any, but I know there'll be other people that will attend because they live here in town and it's easy for them to come, but it will, we can get some insight as to why that person was hired, how they did on everything and whatnot. I mean, to me, it will give an answer. If somebody comes up and say, hey, why did you hire that person? And, that's the way I look at it.
I just don't want it to be because we don't trust who we have in place. Because if that's the issue, if that's why we're doing it, then we need to address that issue.
Well, if the board member was going to be a part of anything other than an observer, that might be true, but the board member is only going to be an observer. And honestly, I think it'd be good.
The U.S. Constitution was probably one of the best governmental things ever written. I mean, it's lasted for hundreds of years. I like our system of government because there's a system of checks and balances. A school board is here so that we have checks and balances. If I just take somebody's recommendation they bring to me and I don't know anything about that person, which makes me feel uncomfortable voting for it. It just makes me a yes man because I just did whatever they said to do. I'm no longer supplying checks and balances. There are, micromanaging was mentioned and I understand where you're coming from. A school board needs to be careful and not reach in where it don't belong. But yet, I went back and read a lot of policy about MSBA this week about it and some other stuff. MSBA, and even when you go for your training, you've been through, they tell you hire a superintendent to run the school. And you're supposed to do policy and they're supposed to do procedure. Well, in a perfect world, that's great, that works, but we don't live in a perfect world. And if we don't have checks and balances, you know, they say absolute power absolutely corrupts. And I don't mean that to sound probably the way it came out. I'm just saying, we're not doing our job if we don't have checks and balances. And we've had a lot of that in years past.
No checks and balances.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. We are the checks and balances. I just maybe not on every interview panel. I think I understand where you're coming from on, we have to approve each hire eventually. We have to, before that hire's finalized, the board has to approve that. So we all have to vote on that. And that is our duty. I just think the checks and balances is, if we have a question about that, that is our opportunity in these meetings, or even outside of these meetings. I've called Dr. Dial several times outside of meetings, just questions about different things that come up that I have. And I think that's definitely our job, is to be that checks and balances into, if we have problems or questions with the processes, that is our job. But I see what you're saying. I just don't think that we need to be a part of the hiring process, it seems.
No, we are the ones that hire.
We are, but like I said, we are the eventual vote that approves that process. Just don't want it to give the impression that the board doesn't trust who we put in place, because that may, if that's the case, that's our core issue that we need to handle, not the hiring process.
Yes, but sometimes, don't you think it would be nice that if one of the board members was there to observe, to hear another opinion other than a teacher or an administrator or something like that, someone who is not one of those, and what their feeling was about this person and all that? I mean, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a person that isn't in that. They're out, they're a totally different, you know, person. And I don't think it's a bad thing to get their opinion. Whether we all agree on it or not, they can tell you what they saw, what they, you know. We each get a different feel about a person. We each see different things when we observe things. Everybody looks at things a different way. So I don't see where, if a board member wants to attend, I mean, Troy's thing is saying, nowhere that we have to, nowhere are we gonna be watching over it. But if we want to see it, I don't see where that would be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue.
I don't really have a problem. I just wanted to bring that up. I don't want to give that impression is there another issue that we have here? Is that why we're doing this? Is there you know, you've mentioned management. Is there an issue that you think we have with management that we need to deal with instead of this? But I don't necessarily mind it as far as the way it was written or the way it was stated, that we don't necessarily ask the questions, we just are observers, and if we choose.
Here's one of the ways, and I thought a lot about this. If somebody comes to me and tells me how to vote, and I vote that way because they told me that's who they picked, and I do that every single time, why vote? Why do we need a board? We don't even, just let them go do what they want to do. You see what I'm saying? There's no checks and balances there. So
we can't be a part of it. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I mean, at some point, we can't be a part of every decision that's being made. I mean, you see what I'm saying? That's all. That's my.
And I agree. We don't. Okay, I hear from all over the place. I hear all kinds of comments, and I said, don't sweat the little stuff. It's the big stuff we need to worry about. Wouldn't even begin to try to get involved in all this, so many things that Mr. Dalton and Dr. Dial deal with all the time. Board don't have any business in that. But you need to be aware of what's going on. I want to hear all those comments, because if I don't hear all those comments, I don't know what's going on. Now, it seems like probably not just this administration, but every administration doesn't really want their people, the employees, to talk to the board. But if the employees don't talk to the board, how does the board know what's going on? If you don't have feedback, you don't know. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stuff that I've never said anything about, and probably never will. But at the same time, I need to know those things. So, yeah. I don't know what else I meant to.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried, 4-2. Next item is G, consider purchase of handicap bus.
So our handicap bus is a 2005 model. I actually wrote a grant last year to try to get it replaced. Our free reduced lunch rate wasn't high enough to get in on the money. It's 2005 with 175,000 miles on it. We just spent $1,800 on it. It was been down for a couple of weeks.
Is that the one that has that Ford 6.0 motor in it, or did you gotta get rid
It's
of
a
that?
diesel.
Yeah, diesel.
Yeah.
Is it a Ford?
Yeah, it's a Ford.
Yeah, they're problems.
Yeah. So I've shopped around, talked to James, we've talked to lots of different bus companies. I don't think we need a new bus, and they are ridiculous. Handicap buses are ridiculously expensive because of the lifts involved. They're really high used as well. So I found two, a 2010, but it had over 100,000 miles on it. It was $16,000. This one is a 2012. It will be completely gone through. It's got 70,000 miles on it. It's for $17,000. It was $18,600. We got it down to $17,000. Everything else I'm finding that is a decent bus is $40,000 to $45,000. We have to have a small one, van type body, because of where we go and have to be able to turn around. We can't take a full size bus and get turned around.
The only thing about it bothers me, it sounds awful cheap.
So it's guaranteed. It goes through the shop completely. And they have it's got a, they go through the motor, they go through the transmission before it comes to us.
What place is this?
It's Central States. It's the same place we bought our.
Is that up towards Kansas City?
So they've got a shop in St. Louis, they've got a shop in Arkansas, the one in Illinois, they've got all over the Midwest. The one, we bought our trip bus last year from them out of Arkansas.
Is it a diesel?
It's a gas.
Gas.
6.0 gas.
Is it so it's a Chevy?
Chevy 6.0.
Forte.
Those are pretty good motors.
But I've seen pictures of this bus. James has seen pictures of it. It's very clean. Again, it's in their shop right now.
They're easy to work on compared to a 6.0.
Brand new one, 70,000 with the lifts, because the lifts are so expensive.
May I ask a question? Where does this bus come from?
Illinois.
Better watch the Illinois buses, rust up there will get you.
There's no rust on it currently.
Well, we'll check your frame over pretty good.
And we don't, it has to get here, we have to, we don't give them the check until we see the bus.
And did it come with like a 30-day warranty or a 90-day warranty? If the transmission burns out right away?
It does, there is no warranty.
Okay.
It's buying a used car. Some have warranty on it.
I was gonna say, some
Some
used
give you a
cars.
30-day, which
Some-
you can
yeah.
What does the
see
new one
through.
cost?
70,000.
About 70,000 for a newer, because of the lifts are so expensive. I mean, a used one, the used ones I looked at, I told you I talked to, the 16 had a transmission issue, they were replacing the transmission, I wasn't, that worried me. This one, and then I looked at several when I called several bus companies, everything they had was 40 to 45,000.
That's what I'd expect.
Do we just have one right now?
Yes, I do not plan on getting rid of our other one
Back up?
because it's not worth anything
Right.
anyway. And just having a backup, because we have been down, we were down for 2 full weeks.
What do we do then? What
So
do we use?
we were transported some on a regular, those that could ride a regular bus rode a regular bus. We paid some parents to bring in their kid. We paid them mileage to bring them in, and some just did bring them for a couple days. So.
Do we have a motion? Troy makes the motion to buy this bus. Do we have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried, 6-0.
Okay, so while we're talking about buses, I have a question.
Yes.
So it seems that the installation of the cameras on some of the buses have been a problem. And so one of the bus drivers was kind enough to send me pictures of the underneath of their bus and how these were installed. Now, my husband is an ASE certified mechanic in about anything you want to be certified in. I sent him these pictures last night and he cringed, literally cringed at how these cameras were installed and how this is, you've got zip ties hanging, holding this stuff. They didn't even clip the zip ties off. You've got a hole drilled into a frame. Did anyone check to see that if a hole has been drilled into a frame, if it voids the warranty on that bus? Because it could. Because I also sent these pictures to my brother, who's a master welder. Okay? You've got these connected to these pipes. Okay, is this a fuel line? Is this a brake line? Okay, so these get hot because of something, the camera malfunctioning or whatever. Is it gonna burn through those gas lines? Is it gonna burn through those brakes and that bus has no brakes? I think whoever installed these did a really shoddy job. Really shoddy. And we paid a lot of money. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of you are having electrical issues on your buses. Now, Judy, I know you did.
We had 2 that I know of, and we.
Mine just burned up, the battery thing just burned up, the camera.
Okay. And is there other ones, Larry, that's having trouble with them since they've been installed?
One of them.
I'm not sure.
There's one other.
There's one other?
That James worked on today.
Okay, so I'm looking at the fact that whoever's installed these did a really lousy job. I think they could have thought a little harder as to how these things were installed, because, so I think we need to look at, maybe these people need to, somebody else needs to fix all this, and these people need to give us the money back for what they supposedly did.
So if there's any issues, we absolutely, and James has been, he's worked on 2 of them.
Yeah, but here we are paying.
No, I know, but I can.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I can go back to the company.
Yeah, we need to go back to the
I
company.
just need to know what's going on.
Well, I think all the buses should be fixed. You've got stuff hanging down these buses. Some of the places that these drivers go, if there's a branch on the road,
Sure,
it's gonna pull those wires out.
I can explain, because
Go ahead, Roy.
I've done a lot. I've done this for 33 years. I can explain that one right there. That's a very bad example of a professional wiring job. So what you do is you come out of a hole and someone will take a bunch of electrical tape and wrap it around and they'll jam it in the hole so that wire won't actually wear on the frame and short out. But what happens is exactly what happened there. It's already pulled out, and the glob of electrical tape they put on it it's already, the wire is going to rub on the frame. You don't do that.
I will get with each bus
Look
driver
at this.
and see
Look at this, how they
Yeah, I see.
ran that up.
Oh,
See
that's a
what
fuel
their issues
line?
are, and
Yeah, I can't
we'll get
tell.
James to take a look at their bus, to see what we need to do.
Well, my fear is that, I mean, these cameras were put on the buses to help situations, and evidently the installation on these is not doing that. Then-
Are they working?
Are they working? Because I heard we had a stop arm violation the other day, and we had no film.
That, yes, we did. That one camera had come unplugged from the DVR. It wasn't tightened up.
Okay, so is that from the jarring of where that bus
James
goes?
tightened it up and made sure that it was tight. We don't know why it came. We don't know if it wasn't tightened up in the first place. James tightened it up to be sure that it wouldn't come loose.
Is that the only violation we've had so far?
Have we verified that all these cameras work? Has anybody ever,
Have I gone in and plugged into every one of them? No, but I could.
well, couldn't we, I mean, we've had the district bus way back when the guy ran the stop arm and it didn't show the stop arm, it just showed the cars on by. And then he got the one that didn't have anything. Shouldn't we get those and pull them in and just put them out in an empty parking lot and run them for a minute or two and then pull the hard drive out and go look at it?
I can actually plug the computer into the hard drive. I don't have to take the hard drive out.
But I think we need to know they're working.
Well,
I mean,
the light, if the green light comes on, the system is working. I understand about the camera. Yeah.
I mean, we spent a lot of money to do this. I can't believe that. I about died.
I will check.
I about died when I saw the pictures. And my husband and brother appreciated the 10 o'clock text when I sent
I
them
will check
pictures.
on it.
Thank you.
And we'll fix whatever we need to fix.
And you know, if our mechanics are busy with all the COVID stuff and everything, maybe we need to go somewhere in town and, I mean, you know, once in a while we all run into something and we.
But you need somebody that's certified in electronics and stuff to know that the way that was done is wrong.
I'll get with the bus drivers and figure it out.
You can have those. I have extras.
Would you, are we through talking about cameras?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Yes, we are.
Would you, I guess, go over our policy on how our extra trip bus drivers, what they're supposed to do with their trip sheets, and your repair notice and
So
everything?
they
That
have-
way everybody's
yeah,
on
so-
the same page?
We installed a mailbox, drop box in the door of the maintenance shop out on Mansfield Road. So if they don't, like Tommy, he has his own set of keys to most of our buses, but some we have to hand them the keys, so they would drop their pre-trip that they did and the keys, or just the pre-trip, into that box. So James is the one, when he comes in the morning, the box is right there, he opens it up, he pulls it out. And if there's an issue with it, he's to fix that issue, file that pre-trip with that bus, and sign off that he's fixed that issue. And it's supposed to be fixed. If it's a major mechanical issue, or a safety issue, it's fixed before, it should be fixed before it goes out again. If it was an interior light bulb, that's one thing, but it's a mechanical issue, it should be fixed before it's checked out again. We've had a few of our buses that have been down a day or two, and we've had to use a different bus for one reason or the other. But that drop box they used to turn those trip tickets in, I think, with their trip ticket, the pre-inspection ticket with their trip ticket, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it depended on when.
And now we drop them in that box.
Every night.
Yeah, every night. And we do that with our Bears Den people too, so if there's an issue, we know it the next morning.
If we're done there, I got another question about transportation. Where are we on getting information from Transport?
I have made phone calls, left changes. I have emailed numerous times. I've emailed Mr. Giovanni, no response. Today I emailed the corporate office and told the corporate office I had been emailing Mr. Giovanni trying to contact, that I was trying to contact him. And so far, well, I did it today, this morning, and I've got no response this afternoon on that.
Have you sent anything, Troy, or just?
I have.
Okay. We paid $5,000 for unbiased study from Transpart, and I don't really feel like that's what we got. I even contacted them last September, a year ago, and ran the numbers, told them the figures were wrong. I had 4 or 5 people that were pretty good with the numbers to verify my numbers were correct. And they sent an email back, I'm sure Dr. Dial has, that said I was wrong.
I didn't get an email from them.
Yeah.
That's the July date.
Anyway, my numbers were not wrong. The figures were never right. So I want to know, I still want to get the information from Transpart. So I'm going to make a motion to give the president, the vice president, the authority to meet with an attorney, take legal action to obtain information concerning Transpart, transportation that has already been requested. Because they're just ignoring us like we're nothing.
They are ignoring us. Motion has been made to the president and vice president to, I assume, to contact an attorney, to do whatever I guess they think best.
Right. Because any kind of legal action.
Try to get in touch with Transpar and get the information. Is that correct?
Right.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Dina seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? 4-2, motion passes. Next item is MSBA 2020A policy updates. And I assume
We're not adopting anything tonight. Those just came out, so they're up for your review. I'll send you updates, kind of go through all of them, and we'll adopt them at the next month's board meeting. No action.
is it what I looked at today on sectional?
That's one of them. That's one.
Mhm.
Yeah, there'll be, we currently have to follow that practice because it's law. We will be following that practice if it came up. We just have to adopt the policy.
And that was a lengthy.
Yes, it is. And there's lots of training for Mr. Dalton and I.
I had that question here somewhere to ask. Who's going to be our coordinator, Title IX coordinator? And we have to call him that too.
So, nothing to adopt. We're just, you'll need to review it. You'll need to review it before next month, and I'll send you lots of information.
All right, sounds good. We need a motion to adjourn.
We're going back to closed. Going back to closed.
Oh. Yeah. We need to adjourn and go back to close. Need a motion. Mark makes a motion. Do I have a second? Troy seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Six oh, motion passed.
Yeah, I'm about ready to get it.
this elementary thing. I got it. I can do it. Listen to me.
Elementary, that's a common motion to start having intermission. Young kids are born, or like whereas up here, so sometimes like and they're like, ooh, why is that in there?
Yeah, but that's what I've been trying to express. I have a daughter in 4th grade.
And the salads don't look the same down there. There's not even sometimes croutons in the middle. And then you look at pictures of it, croutons and cheese on top. And then I'm hearing complaints that they can't go down into their packages. Like with dressing for salad or for ketchup. Yeah, they're having so some of them aren't even cooking. There's not enough teachers who have to open it.
My hands are a little bit tied with that, with the salads and with all of the items. The pallets is federal law, everyone uses fish right now.
I don't know the answer. I'm just telling you.
No, I know, I mean.
Can you do the little containers with lids? Can you do that? With lids
The
on?
little plastic lids.
I see those in restaurants. Well, the restaurants are doing that now. They give you ketchup in one of those with a thing like that. The kids could use them a lot easier than the packets.
Yeah, and then they get a little bit more if you have a squirt it right in.
How much gravy do they get?
How much gravy do they get?
How much gravy do they
So
get?
they get one biscuit and then they get, it's like quarter of a gravy.
A quarter of a cup. They get that much.
Or at least they're supposed to. But I will tell you that I am spending more time because I noticed, not high school up around this, and my office is in the high school. But I am spending more time down those, actually most of the down there, elementary. This.
It's okay, not me around. It's all right. I was just doing it.
But I do tend to spend more time down there.
This county can most fans, most people can live on.
Oh, that's impressive.
Too much gravy on the
We
plate.
put gravy on everything.
Right, yeah. But I appreciate the feedback. Anytime you guys want to know member, because any feedback is good.
Well, if you're working in the elementary, I'll be interested to see in the next 4 weeks if we hear better things than what we have been. High school, oh my gosh, I have beautiful pictures of food from high school. Oh my gosh. I've got someone send me pictures every day.
Well, I made this, so just hold on.
Okay, elementary definitely.
I'm not saying it's not what we said.
It does seem like the high school does better presentation of what you're getting.
Yeah, it looks
Well, and I've
better.
been stressing.
People probably still have their old
And I've been stressed out on
everybody
them.
had it.
Just because they're little, doesn't mean they don't know.
Yeah,
Well, the thing is, you've got teachers to see, you've got parents to see, you've got, you know,
And I tell them
that's where it's coming from.
I'll definitely, I appreciate the feedback.
I know you are. Thank you.
Well, I'm not, power on one side of that cylinder, it's got power to it all the time. I do the switch, so all we have to do is just put that.
I'm not saying that that will get them over the top. I'm just saying that they're going to look into that because as, just as if you had a daughter that was wanting to become a teacher,